Hey folks, welcome to another YK Apps tutorial. As usual, you can find the full article and full source code in ykapps.com. And in today's tutorial, we're gonna go on ahead and create a simple client-server application to demonstrate the use of a singleton design pattern. And it sounds like an exploding title, but basically what it means, we're going to create a simple login mechanism containing a username and a password. We're going to input a username and a password. I created already an account called YK with the username YKApps and the password ykapps.com. And what this program will do, when you press the login button, it will send a post request to the server with the username and password parameters, and the server will check if the username and password matches a row in the table, and if it does, the server will output a JSON string describing the user table row. And we're gonna grab this string with our client, and we're gonna convert that string, that JSON string, into an object. We're gonna use a JSON framework called SBJson, and we're gonna take the JSON string, convert it to an object. Take that object, and we're gonna create a user singleton class, and using the object created from the JSON, we're going to initialize our singleton user class. And I'm going to show you how a singleton class can be accessible from different part of your application, and it's sort of a global data sharing mechanism. So let's just go ahead and press the login button. Press the login, the request is performed, and after it performed, it launches a user detail window. The user detail grabs the singleton instance and takes the parameters that we initialized in the screen before. Does this application demonstrate the usage of a singleton, which is global data shared among different classes. Okay, with that said, let's go on ahead and view our code. Okay, let's start reviewing the code. So you can just go on ahead, open your browser, and go to ykapps.com. And in here, there's the article called Singleton Design Pattern. And you can find the source code, and you can just download the source code. And also, if you scroll down, you're gonna see a link to the JSON library. It's called SBJson, so just go ahead and click this link. And at the time of the writing, the most up-to-date is 3.1.1.zip, so just go on ahead, click it, and download the zip file. And after the download finish, you can just go ahead and open the zip file. And when you open, you'll see this folder created. SBJson 3.1.1 is created. And inside this folder, there is a classes folder. So what you need to do to install the JSON framework is just go to this classes folder and copy the entire content of this folder. Just mark it all, copy this, and move it to your Xcode project. In here I created a group called JSON, and what I did is just copy the entire class's content into the JSON folder. And that's all you need to install the JSON framework. Now the next step I wanted to create is create the communication with the server. Create a sync post request. Sync meaning it will block the app until the request is finished. and I want the request to receive params and return a string. So I created a model group. Inside the model group, I created a subclass of NSObject, a class I called YK functions, and inside the YK functions I created a single static method that returns a string. It's called post request, and it receives params, which is a value key dictionary, and it receives also a URL, which is the URL to post the request. And if you're gonna view the implementations of this method, YKFunction.m, you're gonna want to download the code and review it. Basically, what happens is creating a request object with the URL. We're setting it to post. We're creating a string, which is the post parameters, key value string, and we're setting the request with that string, and we're basically sending this request, and we're taking the data received from the request, converting it to string, and returning the string back from the method. Pretty simple, basic stuff. This is the YK function class, which has a method to communicate with the server. Another class in the model I created called user. The user will be our singleton class. So singleton class usually contains the member of a user, which is ID, username, password, and salt. And a singleton class has to have a static method called getInstance or whatever you want. Usually it's getInstance, which returns the instance, the single instance of this class. And if you review the implementation of this object, the interesting thing to note here is the getInstance static method, which defines a static user class which will hold a single instance. It's initialized to nil, and it checks. If it's nil, then that's the first time we run this, so we have no instance of this class. But if it's not nil, we have an instance and we just return it. But if it's nil, we're gonna dispatch once. We're pretty much initializing the object, making sure it will only be initialized once. So this line of code is either in the dispatch once or synchronized, executed, and thus making sure only one instance is created. And that's the user class. In the data view controller, the data view controller is created automatically with the project. In the data view controller, I put two text fields with the username and password. IB outlet them and connected them in the storyboard. And also I created an IB action for the pressing of the login button. Of course, in the storyboard, you know the drill, connect everything that needs to be connected. We're not gonna review those basic stuff. In the implementation section, pretty much the major thing here is what happens when you press the login button. So basically, it grabs the username and password. It created a dictionary for the request method we created earlier. The request, if you recall, in YK functions file needs params in the format of a dictionary. So we're creating a dictionary for this method. We're executing the request method with our dictionaries, and with the URL to service.ycaps.com/login-check. That's you can go ahead and use the service, something simple I created in the service side to handle really basic login mechanism. And after that, if you recall, the request method returns a string, a JSON string. We take the JSON string, we convert it to a user object using the JSON framework we installed earlier. We take out from the object all the data that we have, which is ID, username, password, and salt. We go to the Singleton class. We call the get instance to get the single instance of the user object, and we're starting to set the salt and username and set the password and set the ID of our Singleton class. Thus, we're making sure that the single instance will hold the current values of the user we extracted from the server. After that, we're pretty much launching the user view control. Okay, now the next window is let's review the user view controller. It basically contains a few labels to hold the data. So create a few labels, connect them through the storyboard, you know the drill. Go to the implementation file, and in the view that did load, what I do, and it's only because I use the Singleton, I can just go on ahead and call the get instance. The get instance already we initialized earlier with the values, so I can just go ahead, grab the single instance. It already has the values from the server, and I go to the label and set the text according to the user object. And that's pretty much it. Very simple app demonstrating server-client communication with JSON, JSON framework, and most importantly, demonstrate pretty basic usage of a singleton pattern. And the next step will be to review a few of Singleton Theory. Okay. The next thing we're going to view a bit about design patterns and Singleton Theory. The reason I started with the code is a lot of people want to just grab the code and leave, so this is the cue for those people to leave. The thing is, what is design pattern? Design pattern are kind of an arsenal of weapons to battle reoccurring problems in programming. A few smart and experienced programmers saw that a lot of problems tend to pop up in programming, so they designed a few conventions to battle those problems. That's called those are called design patterns. And specifically, if we're talking about a singleton, so what is exactly a singleton? A singleton, if you recall, I remember I started to study in the few first classes in programming. The lecture told us don't use global variables. That's not entirely correct, and sometimes you have to use global variables, global data, global methods, global services. Sometimes you have to use them, and it's okay to use them. The correct object-oriented way to implement a global service, global data is using a singleton design pattern. A singleton is basically a class which has single instance throughout the entire life of your application. It can have a maximum of one instance, and the first time the class is called, it creates this one instance and it saves it in a static variable, and after that any other calls to this class, the class returns the static variables it initialized before. Thus, what achieved is a single static instance with global data. You can just go ahead and pass data from different classes, and the single instance remains, and single global data remain throughout the entire life of your application. So this is basically how the UML looks like. You have, in this example, the class is called Singleton, and you have a member of the class type, a static member, which named Singleton. And you have a constructor which is usually not exposed, and it's private usually, and you have a static a method which is exposed that either returns or initialize the static member above. And that's the UML. What's the downside of Singleton? I saw a few programmers tend to put a lot of Singleton in their application with the excuse it's no, it's object-oriented refined, it's okay to use a Singleton as a global means of data transformation. Well, that's not entirely the preferable way. Sometimes it's good to use Singleton, and sometimes it's not that good to use Singleton. And usually, if your application is filled with the Singleton classes, it usually points to a bad design. And why exactly it's not so good to use tons of Singleton? Singleton tend to make your code harder to test. When you code, the best way to code it is to make your code a testable code. And Singleton tend to make dependencies within the Singleton class and other classes, thus making harder to test code. So this is why you shouldn't all the time use a Singleton, only use when you have to. And what exactly does it mean I have to use a Singleton? You have to ask yourself when you're using Singleton, is the class I'm now creating, if it's shared among many classes, if it's gives service, global service to all the application, if it required to be a single instance, if all those conditions are matched, then you go ahead and use the Singleton. You need to use a Singleton. But if creating a class and basically it's managed and through a single point in your application, a single class, then probably Singleton is not the right way to go here. That's pretty much it about all the theory regarding the Singleton. Please go ahead and visit ycabs.com. Go to the Singleton article. If you have any question, post your question. I'll be happy to answer them. Or if you have remarks regarding this tutorial, I'll be glad to listen. That's all, folks. Let me know what you thought about this tutorial, and have a good one.